feel in my heart that the best middleweight right now, his name is Johnny Eblen.
ATT undefeated fighter, so the kid's a problem, man.
I am the best middleweight in the world.
He's a bad motherfucker.
Oh, this guy can wrestle, this guy can punch, this guy can kick. He's just a beast.
Now the new Bellator Middleweight World Champion, Johnny the Human Eblen.
Powerbomb takedowns, relentless pressure, and grueling ground and pound torture on the mat.
Johnny Eblen, electrifying in the Bellator MMA cage.
These are just a few of the nightmares that come with signing the dotted line to face Johnny Eblen inside the cage. 16 opponents have stepped up, and not one has cracked the code. His suffocating wrestling remains the cornerstone of his dominance, the very weapon that helped him hold on to the title of Bellator's last middleweight world champion. So now the question stands, is this American wrestling machine the best middleweight in MMA today? With a UFC debut feeling less like a possibility and more like destiny. Let's rewind every torture seminar Johnny Eblen has hosted in the cage and let you be the judge. Born to a Korean mother and an American father, Johnny Eblen was already carving his path through the combat world back in high school, where he became a state wrestling champion at Park Hill in Kansas City. He wasn't the only fighter in the family either. His older brother, Tommy, also stepped into the world of MMA. Eblen took his talents to the University of Missouri, where he became an NCAA qualifier in 2015 and racked up 3 20-win seasons. With an 87-24 career record and 2 academic All-MAC honors under his belt, Johnny wasn't just a grinder on the mat, he was a student of the game in every sense. In his senior year, he dropped to 174 pounds and became a starter on the #1 ranked Mizzou Tigers. But after graduation, life didn't fast-track him straight into MMA glory. Instead, the grappler moved to Florida, took a full-time job with a paving company, and coached wrestling on the side, quietly putting in the hours while the fight world remained unaware of what was coming. And everything changed during a wrestling session when he crossed paths with Steve Mocco, a former Olympian and coach at American Top Team. One invite to ATT later, and the rest was history in the making. Johnny's journey in MMA began on July 7, 2017, when he made his professional debut against Wayne Collier. The American issued a declaration of war with big haymakers before taking his foe down to the floor. He was happy to introduce his opponent to the infamous Dagestani handcuff and blasted him with shots from the top until the referee pulled him off. This flawless debut lasted only a minute, so the wrestler returned in November to face Raymond Gray. The enemy attempted an Eddie Gordo-style Copiera kick, so Johnny was forced to tame the unruly patient with a takedown. Once it hit the mat, he turned the fight into a slow, violent funeral. Like a python coiling around its prey, his grappling left no escape, forcing the foe to tap to strikes. Next on Eblen's hit list was Wayman Carter. The adversary came at him aggressively and was quickly muscled down to the deck. In an attempt to escape, he laid his head on the chopping block and was caught in an airtight guillotine. Another middleweight who got in the way was Tyler Lee, who had promised to offer some resistance. For this bout, the American switched gears and relied on his striking. Tyler tried to sell snow to an Eskimo by attempting to take the wrestler down, only to be quickly reversed. Eblen was a pit bull on the floor, tearing his prey apart with punishing blows. And before the referee stepped in, it's safe to say he discovered his talent for drumming. Keeping a wrestling powerhouse like Eblen in the minor leagues was like holding a great white shark in a fish tank. So when the call from Bellator came, he didn't hesitate for a second and accepted the offer. On March 22, 2019, Johnny Eblen was welcomed to the big leagues by the dangerous Chauncey Foxworth. He demonstrated the Stone Age tradition of bride kidnapping right in the cage. From that point on, he wrote the script, directed the scene, and acted out the beatdown, humiliating the unlucky fella across 3 rounds. Chauncey became the first opponent to survive Johnny's onslaught, but he was dominated so thoroughly, the judges might as well have clocked out early. In October of the same year, Eblen returned to the cage to face Mauricio Alonso. In his renowned style, Johnny put on a wrestling clinic, taking his enemy down at will. The mat became his domain and he ruled it like a tyrant. When it was all over, the judges had no headache deciding who the absolute winner was. In 2020, during the pandemic, the American fought only once but delivered another dominant performance against Taylor Johnson. He returned on May 7, 2021 to face another protagonist, Daniel Madrid. While everyone expected Eblen to wrestle, he came in with a different plan that night. He detonated his ballistic missiles, dropping the enemy to the floor. Once he smelled blood, he pounced like a predator that hadn't eaten in days, rendering the opponent unconscious. From wrestler to KO artist, Johnny proved that he also possessed a solid striking toolbox. 2 months later, he faced off against Travis Davis and scored a one-sided unanimous decision victory before locking horns with the 10-3 Colin Huckbody. Eblen launched an offensive like a general leading an invasion, blasting the opponent with heavy artillery to the head. Then he airmailed him into the mat and unleashed his grenades, leaving the referee with no choice but to wave the fight off. At this point, the American was 6-0 in Bellator, and a shot at the title was only a matter of time. He needed just one more big win before being granted a chance at gold, so the organization matched him against John Salter, a high-level BJJ black belt with an 18-5 record. While Salter's guard had been a snake pit for many, Eblen was quite the mongoose. In the eternal battle between wrestling and BJJ, the former proved superior in this bout, as Johnny dominated all 3 rounds. With this victory, he secured his golden ticket to a title shot, and was now just one step away from becoming a world champion. It's important to recognize that Johnny Eblen's path to the championship wasn't paved in gold. It was forged in adversity. Like many fighters in the unforgiving world of MMA, Eblen faced more than just opponents inside the cage. His toughest battles came long before the bright lights of Bellator, in the form of brutal, recurring injuries that nearly derailed his dreams before they ever took flight. The trouble began just before his collegiate journey. In the summer leading up to his freshman year, Eblen fractured his fibula and tore multiple ligaments in his ankle, a devastating combo that forced him to redshirt his entire first season. But that was only the beginning. As a sophomore, he pushed his limits during a grueling 7-mile run, only for his body to betray him. Extreme hydration landed him in the ICU for 3 harrowing days. Less than a month later, he tore the meniscus in his knee, an injury that required surgery and another long recovery. By the time he was approaching his junior year, misfortune struck again. A dislocated shoulder hampered his momentum, and after re-injuring it just before the MAC tournament, his season was over before it could even begin. These weren't just physical setbacks, they were emotional crucibles, the kind that break the average athlete. But Eblen is anything but average. Each injury became a chapter in a story of resilience, each setback a forge that hardened his resolve. On June 24, 2022, the hard-hitting wrestler got the opportunity to seize the crown in Bellator's middleweight division, which was held by UFC veteran Gegard Mousasi. Now, Mousasi was a different kind of animal, a 2-time Bellator middleweight champion, former Dream light heavyweight and middleweight champ, former Cage Warriors world middleweight champion, and a former Strikeforce light heavyweight champion, making him a 6-time MMA world champion overall. It was the first true test of Eblen's career, and he was ready for it. His takedowns worked wonders once again, and his relentless wrestling pace melted the opponent faster than a candle under a blowtorch. As expected, the wrestler stuck to Gegard harder than a creep to an OnlyFans model, and Mousasi couldn't shake him off with a crowbar. Johnny used his striking occasionally, but mostly as a diversion before shooting for a takedown. The champ couldn't find an answer to Eblen's grappling and was ragdolled around the cage. It looked like a scene from a horror film. He just couldn't escape the monster. As the violent encounter came to a close, victory was awarded to Johnny Eblen, and with that, Bellator crowned its new middleweight champion. In his first title defense, the American locked horns with Anatoly Tokov, a student of the legendary Fedor Yemelyanenko, who was riding a 7-fight win streak. In the heat of this tactical duel, Eblen began to take control using his go-to technique. He kept proving that American wrestling trumps Russian Sambo, and gave Tokov a free ride courtesy of the infamous Eblen Airlines. In a one-sided pounding where Johnny played the blacksmith, the judges had an easy job declaring the winner. On September 23, 2023, the champ was locked in the cage with Fabian Edwards, the brother of former UFC champion Leon Edwards, who was coming off impressive wins over Lyoto Machida, Charlie Ward, and Gegard Mousasi. The American tried doing what he always does, but Leon's brother proved to be a tough nut to crack. So he switched tactics, using his takedowns as feints to set up his striking. And then with surgical precision, he dropped the foe to the canvas. He went from 0 to mayhem in under 3 seconds and rushed to call the ambulance, but not for himself. On February 24, 2024, at the PFL vs Bellator event, the hard-hitting wrestler was matched against Impa Kasaganyi in a 3-round non-title crossover bout. In a closely contested fight, the American did just enough to sway the judges in his favor, who declared him the winner. Then, in October of the same year, he was scheduled for a rematch against Fabian Edwards. Although Johnny wasn't able to seal the deal before the final bell this time, he took full control early and never gave the wheel back. Edwards came prepared, but lacked the firepower and execution to dethrone the champ. And with that, Eblen's flawless MMA record remained intact. Johnny Eblen is an elite wrestler with heavy hands and can flip the script in an instant. When his takedowns don't land, his fists do. And when Plan A fails, Plan B hits like a freight train. Now riding an undefeated 16-0 record, with no one able to crack the code, the question looms large. Does Johnny have what it takes to sign with the UFC and chase gold on the sport's biggest stage? Could he wrestle toe-to-toe with Khamzat Chimaev? Outmaneuver the unorthodox fury of Dricus du Plessis? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain, if Johnny Eblen signs with the UFC, every top 5 middleweight better take notice, because this man isn't just undefeated, he's unsolved. If you enjoyed the video, front kick that like button, subscribe to the channel, and join the Dialed In MMA Club today.